I mean, in the long term, we have to increase our exports, right? So that
Mhm.
we earn more dollars, and this the demand for dollar
Mhm.
versus supply for dollar is somehow bridged or met. But what are the other remedies that Pakistani government or Pakistan's policy makers ought to be doing at this juncture? I mean, they really can't. I mean, I think you can curtail some of the wasteful imports. I mean, people talk about the cheese and the luxury items. I know if you, but that they become big stories, but they are little peanuts compared to the larger stuff that we have to import. So, what are the measures that can be taken to sort of stabilize the rupee? I'm not saying to artificially peg it like Ishaq Dar, the former finance minister, is fond of doing. I think that's also not helpful to the economy. So, what can be done?
I'll give you an analogy of what you're asking me and and how to answer this question. So you were saying, how can I bring my weight in control? But you are saying, can you play with the weighing machine versus doing diet and exercise? Matlab, can you like give me a solution to fix the weighing machine to fix my weight? It's not possible. What should happen is we should have an open floating market rate. Your weight should be what you deserve it to be. Your dollar to rupee rate should be what it is. What you need to ask the government is what kind of reform that they can take to reduce your imports, to increase your exports, to attract more investment, to attract more remittances. How can you sort of build that paradigm? But frankly, a lot of them require structural policy changes, and an interim government cannot do that. So this argument that what can this government do for a quick fix, I feel like that's part of the problem. It's asking the wrong question. There is no quick fix to this. You do need long-term solutions, and those long-term solutions are political in nature, and they need to happen through an elected government. There is no short-term. The shortest term fit that we've come up with is the SIFC, which is some kind of magical unicorn that Pakistan keeps imagining every 5 years or every 3 years. It's not going to work to have a one-stop solution where investors, so suddenly your problems will go away. This is not how it works. The structural solution, I'll give you an example of this, and then I'll tell you how it's politicized. One of the reasons why we're in such dire straits is because of the deals that we've cut with the IPPs, with the independent power producers, because we've pegged their rate of return to the dollar. And as the dollar slides, we continue to have to pay more electricity bills. That money floats out. When Prime Minister Imran Khan's government was here in sort of when they were in power, they tried to renegotiate those deals. A lot of those deals, a lot of those companies were Chinese, and the Chinese were unhappy. And they made it clear that they were unhappy with Imran Khan because he was trying to renegotiate those deals and cut a better deal for Pakistan. But that was politicized. He was trying to find a structural solution to the issue, and it was politicized to say Imran Khan doesn't know how to manage foreign policy. He doesn't know how to manage, foreign relations. And so there are structural solutions there, but we have to stop politicizing them. We've got to come together, and we've got to be able to resolve those things in their essence. And I don't think an interim government has the capacity or, frankly, the mandate to be able to do that.
No, certainly. I think the interim government does not have that mandate. In any case, one of the keys to some measure of stability is to move to the general election, a free and fair general election, and if I may add, uh,
Hmm.
without any delay. Already there have been these rumors of delays, etc.,
Hmm.
which are hopefully will die down. But I think on the foreign policy thing and what you mentioned, I think one must not overlook the fact that in Pakistan, a lot of these decisions are taken by the powerful military
Hmm.
establishment. So whether it's Imran Khan or X, Y, Z in a civilian position,
Hmm.
they are the ones who call the shots, especially when it comes to Pakistan's foreign relations with Gulf and China and
Hmm.
maybe to the US and with the US because of the history and
Hmm.
the way power is lined up. But I think what you're talking about, the a consensus on long-term structural reforms or changes or solutions cannot come about until Pakistan's political parties agree on a particular reform agenda, and
Hmm.
that is nowhere in sight yet. Maybe I hope things change, and by next year, all parties get this idea. Given the crisis, the magnitude of this crisis, that they rise up to the occasion and they say, "Okay, here are the seven or eight
Yeah.
things that we will all not bring each other down." But frankly, Bilal, I don't see that happening at least in the short term. Maybe in the medium term to long term, the situation forces everyone to get that. That's why there is a view in Pakistan. I mean, many circles which that say, "Oh well, this is why democracy in Pakistan is not cannot work, because the political parties have their own interests, and political leaders have their own little uh, you know, hobby horses, and it is only through a technocratic government which does not have the political pressure." But I mean, I don't even buy that, frankly, and I'm sure you would
Yeah.
agree with me. So
It's
what?
the opposite, actually. It's the opposite. It's the technocratic government cannot take those decisions, does not have the incentives to take those
Hmm,
decisions,
hmm.
to make that happen. And a political government can make those decisions, but also a political government that has continuity and that realizes that it will stay in power or stay out of power based on its performance and not on the basis of whether certain people like them or not. And that is sort of what is important for long-term economic growth and for structural reform to take place. Right now, even for the political parties, there's not an incentive to engage in structural reform, because their ability to stay in power does not have a relationship with their performance, but has a relationship with their performance of a different kind.
Right, exactly. So, not let's talk a bit about protecting the poor and the fixed income groups as this turbulence continues and is not likely to. I mean, we were talking and you were saying that 330 rupees to a dollar is just the start. I mean, it could further
Mhm.
go down in value. Now, obviously, Bilal, a lot of people, I mean, take the example of a person who commutes to work on a motorbike. And earlier, he or she, I mean, mostly it's he in
Mhm.
Pakistan.
Mhm.
So, I mean, imagine if it's 400 or 500 rupees for a liter of petrol to be used, it becomes untenable for them to ride. And then withdrawal of fuel subsidies, especially electricity, makes it untenable for them to pay a very small bill, because it's more than their salary, or
Mhm.
a big chunk of salary. So what can be done in the short term? I mean, of course, we have this Benazir income support program, or SRs. I mean, it keeps on changing name, which gives income support. Maybe that's one area that it should be, its net ought to be widened, or maybe other instruments should be thought of.
You know, this question makes me really emotional. And as somebody who talks about the economy and policy, one should not be emotional. But
No, no, please
and I've been
be
an
yourself.
optimistic person all my life. But frankly, there is no solution. I wish that there was something that I could tell you that can make this better. I wish there was a magic bullet. I wish there was a policy prescription, but it is going to be extremely painful for the middle class. Between the electricity bills and sort of gas or fuel plus rent, I think 60 to 70% of the middle class's income is going to go to this. Um, Hardly any disposable income will remain, and sort of the lower income group will completely wash away. They will go in debt. There will be suicides. There will be criminal activity. It will be an era of significant depression and desperation. And usually, Pakistan's shock absorber has been our informal economy. But even our informal economy will be impacted by this, because it is no longer just a dollar crisis, it is also an inflationary crisis. It's also an electricity and power crisis. Um, it is the poly crisis, so to speak. So, usually, when Pakistan has a crisis, it has a crisis on one front and the other front is fine. So, one makes up for the other. This is not just a typical batting collapse, it is a batting, bowling, and fielding collapse. Everything in Pakistan is collapsing simultaneously. And it, frankly, is just going to be painful. You can have your policy prescriptions, you can increase your Benazir income support fund. Frankly, even there, you don't have that much fiscal space. Um, The IMF and sort of your other debtors will not be happy about that.
Yes.
The interim government, I hate to channel the inner interim prime minister, but he called a big meeting, he whipped everybody into a frenzy, I'm going to do something about the electricity bill, and in the end his hands were tied. It's the same thing, like there is no answer. And it is just going to be more painful if there is any sliver of hope, but that this is a very perverse way to say it, is that things get so bad that there is no choice but for these policymakers to sit together and make a consensus. The protest that we are seeing against the electricity bills, it is an organic sort of movement that is beginning. We have not seen an organic movement in a long time in Pakistan that is based on inflation. If that continues, that could be something that could force these policymakers to say, okay, we really have to make some choices. But if things are not sort of changed, if this continues, I can also paint a picture, and Khurram Hussain also talks about this, where in a couple of years we don't have salaries to pay. Abhi jo circular debt aapki electricity ki hai, ki you take from one empty pocket to give to another empty pocket to give to another. This is going to begin with salaries of government employees, and it's already begun with universities, but there will come a point where federal employees can't be paid, where army cannot pay its own jawans. That one is like 5 years away. It's not that far away where there can be a circular debt situation over there as well. So when it really begins to hurt where it matters, one hopes that things will begin to change. But right now is just a very pessimistic stage, and it feels like the entire state machinery is running after solving for one political player versus our economic and political challenges.